My name's Micah, and I will be on the mound for us today. I know my internship technically ended last week, but you're not getting rid of me that fast. And Dad's back from sabbatical, but I just wanted one more time just to be up here with you guys. And I would just love to start off my part of the morning with just thanking you guys. This summer, our church hosted 4 interns, and I got to be one of those. And it was an amazing summer because of you. You guys really went over and beyond loving and blessing, and Michael said it best because you guys adopted us. And I was so excited because I got some guys from my school and an old friend to come experience Delaware and be at the beach a little bit. But I was most excited about sharing my church family with them. And you guys really rock, and I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I promise I'm not crying. My eyes are just sweating. I think I'm allergic to you guys or something. But the love bucket, you guys rock. So thank you. And today's not even supposed to be emotional. It's gonna be fun. And this morning we're gonna jump right into the book of Luke and just look into the life of Jesus and see how we can grow as a church. We're in the sermon series, Grow, and last week was a lot of fun. So today we are going to be diving in. Sorry, every time I say the word diving, the Alex pops into my mind with the baptistry there. So we'll be looking into the book of Luke and just seeing how Jesus, how he grew. And today's verse is actually really, really cool because the one verse we're going to look at today is all we know about Jesus from the time when he was 12 to when he was 30. We got one verse about from the time he was 12 and when he was 30. And I think that's super cool because for me right now, I'm in the time where I want to know every little thing about Jesus' teenage years. I mean, how cool would it be if we had a book of the Bible just for Jesus' teenage years? How cool would that be? I think it would be really helpful for parents and for teens as well. And just kind of like brainstorming about what that would be. I think chapter 1 would be, Jesus hits puberty. You know, I'm the Son of God. I'm sure he still had to go through puberty or something. I think chapter 2 might be something like Instagram, Twitter, and fidget spinners. Just how Jesus dealt with the trends of that time. I think chapter 3 would be my favorite. I think it would just be ... girls. Because, I mean, I know he created them, but I'm actually convinced that not even he knows how to deal with those creatures sometimes. Like, I'm sorry, yes. Whew. Yes. But we don't have a whole book, but we do have one verse, and it's really cool. And we're going to be diving into Luke today. And it says, and Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature, and in favor with God and man. That's what we have. That's all the Bible tells us about Jesus from the time he was 12 to the time he was 30 years old. And today, I would love just to walk through this text and see the 4 obvious things that I think Jesus obviously grew in, and I think it's good for us to grow in as a church. So today, I just want to walk through this text with you guys and just pick out some things I think we need to grow in. Starting right at the beginning. And Jesus grew in wisdom. I think it's awesome because Jesus grew in wisdom. He increased in wisdom. And he made it a priority to learn. At 12 years old, he made it a priority to learn. But what is wisdom? What is wisdom? How do we grow in it? What is wisdom? Well, the original word there for wisdom is Sophia. If there's any Sophias in the audience, that's an awesome name. But it's Sophia, wisdom. And the Bible tells us a lot about wisdom. And the cool thing is wisdom really isn't, it doesn't have to have a whole lot of book learning. And you don't have to have a certain type of like mechanical skill. It's not about the profound knowledge of how the sun's gravitational pull pulls along all the planets, no. All the wisdom that we see in the Bible is practical. Wisdom is practical. And I think that's really cool just to boil it all down. Wisdom is knowledge that you apply into your life. You know something or you know about something and you apply it to your own life. And I think it's super cool because in Scripture, God is always giving us practical things that we can apply into our life. God gives us things that we can put in our everyday life. And wisdom is always practical. I love the verse Proverbs 9, verse 10. It says, "For the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." So if that is what wisdom is, and that's the beginning of wisdom, how do we grow in wisdom? How do we increase, invest in wisdom? And just taking a look at the life of Jesus, just a few verses back in Luke chapter 2, it's very evident he grew in wisdom intentionally. And there's actually kind of a funny story about that. So Jesus, Mary, and Joseph go on a family vacay. They leave Nazareth, where they're born, and they go to Jerusalem for the Passover feast, which was a huge tradition for Jews at that time. So they go to Jerusalem, and they have an awesome time. But the Bible says it's time to come back, and they start traveling back, and it's not the easiest journey. You know, they're riding back on a donkey or walking. And so the Bible tells us that they had been traveling for a full day. A whole day they've been traveling. And about that time, Joseph looks over at Mary and says, "Hey, Mary, can you pass me the Twizzlers? It's a long day." And I'm pretty sure Twizzlers are in the Bible somewhere because they're that good. But they get the Twizzlers, and he's eating one, and he turns around to give some to his son, Jesus. And he turns around and, "Where's Jesus?" And let me remind you, they've been traveling for a whole day. They've been a whole day, and they can't find Jesus. They look everywhere, and he is not there. So they rush back to Jerusalem. And just scary parenting moment, a whole day without a kid who just happens to be the Son of God. So they lost God, basically. And so they rush back, and the Bible tells us it took them 3 days to find him. So it's been a total of 4 days, a whole day of traveling without him, and 3 days looking for him. So they rush back, and they find him after 3 days in the temple. They find him in the temple, sitting at the teacher's feet, learning from every word of the Bible. And I think that is awesome because he was intentionally investing in learning. So I think as a church, if we want to grow in wisdom, if we want to invest in wisdom, we have to have a teachable spirit. Jesus, even though he was lost, was intentional in having a teachable spirit so he could grow in wisdom. And here's the cool thing I found out. When wisdom from the Lord replaces the so-called wisdom of the world, your life will radically change. It will radically change. Because a lot of times we go to family for wisdom, or co-workers, or our friends. But when do we ever go to the Lord for wisdom? The one who knows everything. And I truly think when the wisdom from the Lord replaces so-called wisdom from the world, your life will radically change. So I think for us to be able to invest in wisdom, we need to be investing in wisdom with a teachable spirit. Jesus was investing in wisdom with a teachable spirit. He was growing in wisdom. Second thing there, Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature. Stature. Like your body, your physical health. Jesus grew in stature. And I think that is so cool because here we have the Son of God, Jesus, intentionally investing in his body. He was growing his body, and I think that is so important for us today, especially in America. We need to take care of our bodies. First of all, because they're not really ours. The Bible tells us that God gives us everything so that we can be stewards of it, and especially our bodies. And Romans tells us that our bodies are used as a holy temple for the Holy Spirit. And God wants to use that. And that's super cool. And for me, I want there to be no limitation on God's plan because of my body. I don't want a disability or something that I can't do because of a lack of investing in my body to stunt God's plan. And I think that should be true for all of us. And so Jesus really took time to invest in his body, and he grew in stature. And today, there are really so many ways that we can invest in our body. And it looks a little different for everyone. And I don't want to be up here and sound like your PE teacher telling you to run laps or anything, but I think it's good to invest in your body. Because a cool thing after doing some research, when you're working hard to keep your body healthy, all the areas in your life improve positively, which is really cool. So when you're trying to be healthy, trying to invest in your body, it boosts your brain power. You get smarter just from doing that. That's awesome. And it's actually proven that when you are investing in your body, your relationships improve. How cool is that? So and there are a lot of ways to invest in your body, and maybe for you it's losing a couple pounds. I know that's a big goal for a lot of people, and just committing to be in exercise or get in the gym and lose a couple pounds. I think that would be super cool. Maybe for some of us it's just simply watching what we eat. There's a lot of stuff out there that I don't even know is real. And it messes us up. And I think sometimes for some people it could just be watching what you eat. Something really, really simple in that. And I think it can really help. Maybe for you, the best thing you can do for your body is to rest. I think that's what it is for me. A lot of people see investing in your body, living at the gym, or always eating healthy. But maybe for some of us, it's just rest. And that's definitely what it is for me. Because my life is flying at 100 miles an hour, doing this, doing that, and I just get so busy that I don't rest. And it definitely catches up with you. There's some cool stories in the Bible that show us that Jesus rested. He went out on the boat one time with his disciples, and he was exhausted, so he's just chilling at the bottom of the boat taking a nap. But they get caught in this huge storm, and waves are crashing, the wind's blowing all over the place, and Jesus is just asleep, bottom of the boat. He rested. And numerous times throughout the New Testament, you see Jesus intentionally having rest time with the Father. I think that's super cool, and what a cool way to nap. One of the things in the Magee family, especially for Dad, is Sunday there is always involved with a holy nap. You know, Dad has to preach 3 services. Don't talk to him from 2 to 4. Not even close to the door. Actually, it's best that you be outside, because that holy nap's important. and I think rest is huge for us. And it's cool because it was so evident in this verse that Jesus invested in his stature, in his body. And I think that's important for us today, because we never want to stunt God's plan for us. We never want limitations to that. And maybe finding that next step of how to invest in your physical health be a cool next step to grow. And coming back to the verse, and Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So we kind of saw how Jesus grew in wisdom and invested in wisdom, and how he grew in stature, and maybe how we can grow in stature. But this third point here, it's so awesome. Jesus increased in favor with God. He grew in favor with God. And I think that is the most important for us to do today, to grow in favor with God. You know, Jesus told his disciples, number 1 commandment, love God. Just love God. And I love that, because if you look at the life of David, you really understand how that works. David was just a regular guy. He was a cool guy, but he made so many mistakes. In fact, I think he made some of the biggest mistakes in the Bible, but because his heart was in favor with God, God blessed him. And I think it's the same with us. We're going to fail. We're going to epically fail sometimes. We're going to fall into sin because we're human. And growing in favor with God doesn't necessarily mean to live a perfect life. It just means to live in a way that our heart is his. It means that we're living in a way that when we sin and when we do mess up, boom, we're redirected right back to him. And one of the best ways, I think, to grow in favor with God is to spend time with him. Find a church. And hey, if you're looking for a church, I know a pretty good church. It's not too far away from here. And so I think that's an awesome way to just grow in favor with God. Jesus was found in the temple, growing in favor with God even when he was 12 years old. And I think that is super, super cool. Another one is talk to him. A way to grow in favor with God is talk to him. And last week, I talked about prayer and how important it is to be living in prayer, because truthfully, prayer is where we make our relationship real. If you don't talk to him, it really isn't a real relationship. So to grow in favor with him, I think we need to be talking to him. And I think my favorite part about this verse is when you're growing in favor with God, there's nothing we can do to make God love us more. There's nothing we can do to make God show us more favor because he's already indescribably amount of love towards us. But it's about growing in the understanding of how much he loves us. I don't think I'll ever get to the point knowing how much he loves us until I meet him one day. But growing in favor with God, it's about us growing in the understanding of how much he really does love us and how much he does want to bless us. And you may be thinking, God doesn't have too much time for me to talk to him, and I'm not even that spiritual enough to talk to him. No. I'm here to tell you that you're wrong, and I don't want to sound harsh, but God doesn't have a standard you have to meet to get to his blessing. He doesn't have a standard or a goal you have to get his favor. Because if that was so, life would be absolutely pointless because we would all fail. And I want you to know God doesn't have a standard. He has a standard, but you don't have to reach that standard to find his love. It's about growing and understanding how much he really does love us, which is really cool. I love that. In the last part of this verse here, it's the hardest part for me. So we saw how Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God. But this favor with man part, it just hits me hard. It was evident that Jesus grew in favor with men, though. But the part that's hard for me is it doesn't say to grow in favor of those you want to. And it doesn't say grow in favor with those you love. It says grow in favor with men, meaning everyone. And that part's so hard for me because we all know that one kid or coworker or family member maybe that's just, what are you doing? And it's hard because honestly, people are idiots. And sometimes it's just hard. And so how do we grow in favor with men? And sorry if I offended someone there, but I don't mean to sound harsh, but luckily we have the life of Jesus to look into. And it's really cool because just looking at the stories of how he reacted with people, we can see how to grow in favor with men. And just thinking about the knuckleheads he surrounded himself with, his disciples, you know how frustrated he probably was with him, like all the time? First thing comes to mind is Peter lashing out in anger, chopping a dude's ear off. Like, what the heck, Peter? And Adam makes a funny joke about this. Can you imagine what the noise was when Jesus healed the ear back on? Like, what sorry. That's sidetrack. That's why I have notes, so I don't say stuff like that. But anyway, when Jesus responded like that, he responds in love and in kindness. And I think of the woman brought to him caught in the act of adultery, in the middle of the church, in the middle of the crowd. He didn't ridicule her. He didn't tear her down, and he didn't dispose of her. He got down to her level, and he helped her. And I think looking at stories like that, being with people is messy. And people are idiots, but Jesus always grew in favor with people. And I think the hardest part for me is Jesus always grew in favor with men, but men weren't always in favor with Jesus. And that's going to be so true in our lives, because no matter what we do, we're going to have people that are around us that simply don't like us, that simply don't live in favor with us, and we have no control of that. We really don't. But what we do have control of is how to respond to that. And I think this is really cool. Proverbs 3, written by one of the wisest guys ever, Solomon, it says, "Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablets of your heart. Then you will win the favor and a good name in the sight of God and man." And I love that. And I think that's the key, because looking into Jesus' life through this verse and through this chapter, and hearing that verse, you know, I don't want to sound corny or copy the Beatles or anything, but you need love. In order to grow in favor with men, you really need to react and to show love. And that's what Jesus did. He came down and he said to love God, but to also love people. And he showed us that on the cross, which is absolutely incredible. And honestly, always loving someone is hard. There's going to be days that you wake up just, I don't want to get out of bed. And that's going to affect you loving people. And there's going to be days that other people are in that mood, and it's hard to love them. But this is where Christians are called to live a higher standard and in love no matter how hard it is. And I know that's hard to hear, but that's what we're called to do. And it's cool because it grew in favor with men and was always showing them love. Always showing them love. So today, just looking at this one verse, we've seen that Jesus devoted his teenage years to growing, increasing in wisdom and learning, increasing in stature, keeping himself healthy. And he also invested in growing in favor with God and growing in favor with men. And as we wrap up today, those are just so vital in our growth as a church. A lot of times churches around only focus on the spiritual side, and yes, that is so important, but this verse shows there's 3 other things that we need to be working on. Growing in wisdom, being wise, applying it to our life. Growing in stature, staying healthy. I think that's a huge part of our life. Yes, growing in God, talking to him, making our relationship real, and also growing with each other. And so just to give a little way for you guys to remember this, growing up, I was a part of 4-H. Has anyone ever heard of 4-H? Cool, a few of you. So a 4-H is a club that basically just helps kids get into the community and better themselves. And the foundation of 4-H is absolutely incredible. It's called 4-H because it stands for 4 H words that you apply. It's head, health, heart, and hands. It's 4-H. And incredibly, I think those 4 H's are exactly what Luke 2:52 tells us. And just so you guys can kind of remember and take a takeaway, we need to be growing wisdom, our head. Well, it was so obvious that Jesus increased and grew in wisdom, and that's what we need to do. Learn from your mistakes. I think that's huge. And not only that, but learn from other people's mistakes. If you've ever read the Bible, there's so many dorks in there that you can just learn from their mistakes and it'd save you a whole lot of pain. So head would be working in growing our wisdom. Health, second one, our stature. Our physical health, I think, is so important, number one, because they're not really our bodies anyway. We are stewards of God's things. And number two, we never want a limitation on God's plan because of our bodies. So I think that's super important. Health, number two. The third one is heart. Our heart, our relationship with God. Talk to him. Make it a real relationship. Go to him for wisdom. Go to him in prayer, in praise, because it is the most important thing to invest in our relationship with God. Because at the end of the day, Your relationship with Jesus Christ is the only thing that matters. And I hope you understand that. And the last one is hands. And I think this is really cool because it just shows us, kind of gives us a graphic of what growing in favor with men really looks like. You know, Jesus came down and he could have been on a throne the whole time and just talked to people and answered their questions, but no, he served them. And I think that's how we grow in favor with men, with our hands and with our love. So head, health, heart, and hands. What we need to be growing in today. And so I think as a church, if we invest in those, we will grow. And we will succeed as being the church. So my time is up, sadly. So I'm going to pray for you guys, and then I'll send you off.